name is Jason JROCK Houston, and you're listening to Catachrist Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.catachrist.com. And our special guest today is epic Tantrum Bassist Greg Ross. Welcome to the show, Greg, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having us on.
Now, I got to tell you, I've never heard of a band before. Your publicist sent me a little PR piece on you guys, and he sent me a copy of a new album, and I got to tell people I'm pleasantly surprised. It's not too often that you hear a great band these days. I'll tell you this much, Greg. I tip my hat to you guys for a simple fact that you even bother writing or releasing any new music. A lot of bands are like, you know what? Nobody's buying CDs. We're not going to even bother writing or recording any music. So I got to start off with saying thanks for that, because I really am a music lover myself.
Well, thank you. I don't know that we had much choice. We have we have a band rule that we don't play any covers. So I guess had to write our own music if we actually wanted to do anything. So sort of we had no choice. So that's how we ended up there.
Now that's kind of interesting, because a lot of times, like most people know, when bands are getting going, that's how they get the start. That's an easy way to get live gigs and people come and check you out and that. But I got to say, one thing that impressed me about the listening to the album is they're great songs, and I tell you, really greatly written songs. So does everybody in the band, contribute to the songwriting, or?
So most of the songs you hear on that album were written by Peter and Paul, who are the two guitarists.
Okay.
They had like a fantasy of doing a Becker and Fagan from Steely Dan thing.
Okay.
So they would write, and they would bring in different people. So that the drummer Z, who's in the band now, they brought him in to play drums, and then he sort of joined the band as a member, and then they kept auditioning different bassists, and I knew them. I knew them. I was friends with the guys, and they kept asking me to play bass, and I kept saying no. And so there was all these different bassists they brought in. So the only ones I remember, there was a guy called the Wookiee.
Okay,
and
wow,
there was one guy who was a heroin addict.
Wow.
And as time went by, they wore me down, and finally I went in to goof around one day, and I guess I just sort of stuck around since then. All the songs have sort of changed over time. So once it became like a real band instead of just two guys trying to, mad scientist songs together. That's when, and now the writing process is entirely different, where anyone will come in with an idea, and then everybody just sort of runs with it. So
a lot of these songs on the album, as you're saying, were kind of written before you joined the band. So let me ask you, once you had joined the band, Greg, how much input were you allowed to have as far as coming in and just kind of coming up with your bass parts, as opposed to the guys telling you, no, this is how we hear the song in our head. This is what we expect.
I had a ton of lateral with what I wanted to play. The songs are pretty complex, so there's definitely a blueprint, and usually we all everybody kind of plays what they want until we think something doesn't sound good. And to be quite frank, all of our songs we're very much like a jazz band, in that none of our songs stay static. We never play them the same way. There's a lot of improvisation.
Interesting, because the one thing I noticed, I was going to ask you, listening to the overall album, one thing I say very hard to do, which I'd say is a compliment to you guys, is it's very hard to pigeonhole you and say, okay, they're a metal band. I hear everything from people describe you guys as progressive, rock, alternative. There really is a little something for everybody. Just to give you an example, some of the tracks I really enjoyed were Don't Bother, False Idols, Letting Go. Now, I would describe kind of like Don't Bother's kind of got a little bit of a hard rock feel to it. Kind of like, I think it would be a good rock radio track. And then I know you guys also released a lyric video for Letting Go, which that's kind of one of my other favorite songs, but they don't really sound nothing alike. Each song kind of really stands out on its own. And with that in mind, I was going to ask you, do you think that's just the fact that everybody in the band kind of brings a different influence into the band, or is it just you guys going in, this is what we wrote, and There's no real set rules as far as, it's got to be all metal, it's got to be all hard rock, all progressive.
We like to say that I'm the only one in the band that will call us a prog band. Everyone else, but that's just because I come from a background in the music industry and the marketing angle. We really are try to define ourselves as just an eclectic band.
That's a good way. Yeah.
Our attitude is if we like it, we're going to play it, and the music is made up of our influences. Whatever we listened to growing up, we're all big Rush fans. We're all Steely Dan fans. You can hear all of the influences in there. But at the end of the day, our goal is to sound like Epic Tantrum, whatever that is. So I think throughout both discs, the studio version and the live version, I feel like we sound like us, even though the songs always sound a little different.
Yeah, but at the same time, to me, that's a cool thing to have, because a lot of times when you're, like I said, I just kind of discovered you guys, and a lot of times when you're listening to a band for the first time, a lot of people have it in their mind, okay, who do these guys remind me of? They sound like Metallica, they sound like the Beatles, whatever the case may be. And I'm a guy kind of like you described. While I typically listen to like hard rock and metal bands, I also have an appreciation for everything from, Deep Purple to the Eagles, Tom Petty. To me, if the song sounds good, like if I listen to it and I like the way it sounds, I don't try to pigeonhole my listening to just one thing. Oh, all metal all the time, all hard rock all the time. To me, if the song's really, greatly written and it tells a great story, and you dig in the sound, that's what it's all about to me. It's not necessarily, what's the flavor of the month,
Yeah, we're definitely not the flavor of the month band.
Yeah.
So we kind of, like I said, we write what we like, and the band is our hobby. It's our passion and it's our hobby. And so if we really. Bands say this, and we want people to like our music, and we want people to enjoy it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're really, the four of us are writing songs that we enjoy, and as long as we enjoy it, that's all that matters to us. We hope other people like it, but that's really our goal, and so that's why we are not your flavor of the month band.
Yeah, and when I'm
going to put that on T-shirts.
Yeah. When I say flavor of the month, what I mean is, you probably remember back in the day when. There was a grunge explosion. You had Nirvana and Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam and all these. And then after all those bands kind of broke out, you had all these copycat bands, and then the record companies were doing nothing but signing grunge bands. And as we found out 10 years later, the bands that are still around are the ones that were really good, and everybody else they didn't make it because they were just copying other people.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. The cream usually rises to the top, and a lot of the clones of every movement sort of just disappear, or they go and play the.
And see that's a cool thing about a band like Epic Tantrum, because you guys are you're not necessarily playing by rules. You're doing it your own way, and if you make it, great, and if not, you gave it your best shot.
Yeah, for us, success isn't going to be defined by the same terms as your average band.
Yeah.
We have our own studio that we rehearse and record in, so we don't have those the limitations that some other bands have. Mm-hmm. And we're not looking to go out and tour the world. We want to play shows that we're going to enjoy and make sense. We're not unwilling to tour.
Of course.
But our goal is really, like I keep saying, we enjoy making music. We enjoy getting together as a band, and that's really what it's about to us.
Oh, how cool is that? Now let me ask you, Greg. Now you mentioned you guys kind of record at your own studio. What's that like? It must financially must be a great thing to have that ability to go in there anytime you want and record.
Well, it's interesting. Recording in your own studio is there's pros and cons to it. Okay. So of course the pro is the cost. We're not worried about the cost of going in and doing anything. And there's a certain amount. We're very relaxed there because it's our home to a degree. But when you do go in and you have a record and you're recording in a studio, you only have so much time. That can also be inspirational.
Yeah.
Like that sort of madness and that sort of I need to come up with something now can be powerful, which we don't have. The album is called Abandoned in the Stranger's Room, and there's a reason I'm saying this. The Abandoned part, there's 2 discs. Abandoned is the studio sessions, Stranger's Room is the live sessions. And it's called Abandoned because I don't know who said it. There's a ton of people who have been given credit for it, but I'm just taking credit for telling it with me. Yeah. So there's a saying that art is never finished, it's merely abandoned. And that quote struck me because we kept tweaking things. We kept going, well, let's change this, we'll change that. Little tiny things that no one else would care about. And finally, I was like, look, we have to abandon this. We have to move on because we could spend another 2 years going in and doing this. And that's how the album got its name, Abandoned. And then we changed the last song to call it Abandoned.
Wow. And the cool thing about that to me is, again, like I was saying earlier, a good song is a good song no matter what. So, like, just because, you may write an excess of material and you don't have necessarily enough room to put, all 20 tracks you wrote on one album, and you go back and maybe revisit it 2 or 3 years later, that doesn't mean it wasn't a good song. It just means maybe it didn't fit on the album or you just ran out of room or whatever case. But if it's really a good song, people will dig it, if you release it, 2 years previously or you release it now. And that's the thing about, good music.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's just my opinion, but I mean, example of that is, I'm a huge Kiss fan, and a number of years ago they released a box set, and they released a bunch of these like rare demos and unreleased things, and it's just like, man, I can't believe this stuff never got released before. But it's kind of, as a fan, it's kind of fun to hear, and you find out some of these tracks are maybe written like 30 years ago, and man, this is just as good as when these guys wrote the song as it is now. It's just kind of interesting and fun to hear stuff like.
A good song is timeless. I agree, and part of the reason we did The Stranger's Room is there were songs that we were playing in our set that we hadn't done studio versions or we'd done demos of, and we wanted to make it we wanted to have more of the material out there, and to show both sides of the band because we're very different live than we are on the album.
Yeah, see, and the cool thing about that to me, even when I got a download of you guys' album, and right away before I even listened to a note of music, but I noticed right away that I didn't realize at the time, like you said, it's like kind of a 2 CD thing, but I realized, wow, it's got like 15 tracks or something like that on there. Before I even listened to like music, I thought, wow, that's pretty impressive. A lot of people, they put out a debut album's got maybe 8. You're lucky it's got 9 or 10 tracks. So I thought, wow, okay, so you're getting all this music on this one album, and it makes it worth it as a fan if you're gonna, go to the trouble of ordering the CDs. Like, wow, I'm getting quite a bit for my money,
Yeah, well, there's 10 tracks, I believe, on the studio side and 9 tracks on the live side, and the goal was to show both sides of the band. And
I think you accomplished that.
I thought it was quite audacious and ballsy and bold to, for an unknown band to come out with a double CD. We felt the material was strong enough, and we really wanted, if anybody was to check out the band, for them to see the full scope of the band.
And I think you accomplished that. Now, like I said, I was reading on your Facebook page where you guys put out a lyric video, I believe, for the song Letting Go. Now, back in the day, they had those full production music videos, but talk a little bit about, the challenges of creating a lyric video, and talk about the song and how you guys came up with your lyric video for it.
Well, the biggest challenge with that lyric video is the last 3 minutes of the song. There are no lyrics.
Okay.
So, so that presented a huge challenge. The song is very moody in the beginning and has a sort of cathartic, bombastic instrumental section at the end. And I was trying to come up with visuals that sort of represented everything, and we just found a couple of motifs, like cars driving at night, and fireworks, and different things that we sort of built the video around. There's no shots of the band in the lyric video, but it's very it's very artsy and you know, unintentionally, but I think it works. And you know, like I said, the biggest challenge was just, you know, making a lyric video for a song without a lot of lyrics.
And then you know, talk about the struggle and when you're creating a lyric video, you know, the maybe the desire to kind of really pay attention to the lyrics and say, okay, this is what we got to have in the video, or do you find oftentimes you'll just say, well, you know, maybe we don't have nothing to really put there, but this picture of this will fit with the music?
Yeah. There's not really a direct correlation between the images and the lyrics, you know, but it was more like images that evoked the mood that the lyrics were creating. Yeah. And, you know, there's a sense of, you know, the subject, the hero in our story kind of, at the end of the story, at the end of the song, the music is evoking sort of we kind of consider that song our first attempt at cinematic music.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I've seen that description on there, and I'm assuming cinematic music would be kind of like we were talking about. You kind of try to fit the images with like kind of rock and roll theater, if you will, kind of go inside the listener's mind and make them kind of say, okay, this is what this is about, or come on the journey with us.
Yeah, the song there's a story, there's an arc to it, and some of it's told in the lyrics and some of it's told in the music, and sort of at the end of the song, it gets more frantic as our hero is kind of losing his mind, and so that's what we were trying to evoke in the images in the video, was sort of a more frantic state. And if you're watching carefully at the end, you've seen flashing lights throughout, but the flashing lights at the very end are ambulance lights.
Wow. And you know now, I was curious, like, have you guys, you know, and with what we're dealing with now with the coronavirus and that, have you guys been kind of had to stop from doing live shows right now, or what's the deal with that?
Well, we had a record release show scheduled for New York City that we had to cancel, that we're going to reschedule for hopefully, you know, in the fall.
Yeah.
And that was the only other show that we had officially scheduled. We had a bunch of stuff that was tentative that's all been put on hold. So, you know, for us, you know, the coronavirus has been well, we're not rehearsing or practicing right now, but you know, that's a small price to pay.
Yeah, well, you know,
circumstances.
I was going to ask you your opinion on. I've seen what a lot of bands, because they're not able to get out there and gig right now. A lot of musicians and bands, what they're doing is, you know, they're recording stuff in their home studios or even from their homes, and like putting on, you know, shows, or just you know, just communicating with the fans online. How do you feel about doing stuff like that?
We've talked about doing a live stream of a show. You know, haven't gotten around to it. I know.
No, I know, and this is all new. Like I said, this is something that people have never really had to live through. But it's kind of an interesting thought. You know, think, well, we can't get out there, but maybe we can do this, or maybe we can do that, and you just don't know. You know, some people have, you know, been put out pretty good shows. I mean, there's this musician, Randy Jackson from the band Zebra, and he's been he's just every so often putting up live videos for people to check out of him performing, you know, acoustically from his home, and people are digging it. So just it's a cool thing. It's something new, but who knows, you know, what it'll become.
Yeah, I mean, I know some of us have. Two of the people in the band have jobs that they're working 7 days a week right now because of this, and but yeah, it's like you said, it's a very interesting time for a musician, and we have some videos and stuff that we'll be adding over the next week to 2 weeks to try to you know, keep people entertained during all this madness. We actually put a link up where people could download our record for free, or could stream the record for free. That's on cool. SoundCloud, and we posted it in lots of different forums and on our website, so that, you know, basically if you're bored at home and you're looking for something to do, here's an album to listen to, and hope maybe you like it.
That is cool, and you know, it gives people opportunity who've never heard of the band. Okay, well, this is free, I'll check it out, and if I like it, maybe then I'll go on their website and buy it. So can people actually get physical copies of a CD, or is it only available digitally right now?
So no, it's available on CD as well. It's a double disc, gatefold,
cool.
jewel pack. It's a pretty fancy package,
Yeah.
and the artwork is all done by Johannes from Danger Stage Graphics, who's done covers for like Dream Theater and Uriah Heep and King Crimson. He's done a lot of covers that for tons of bands that you've heard of, and so the package is beautiful.
Yeah,
I mean, he just did an amazing job on it.
Well, I seen somewhere on the internet, it might have even been on your guys' Facebook page, speaking of Dream Theater, where Mike Portnoy, he commented about you guys, like being a great prog rock band. So, that's a great compliment from a legend like that.
Yeah, we were very happy to get that quote.
Yeah, and now let me ask you, Greg. I always love to ask people, like, since you're a bass player band, I was curious. Do you play any other instruments, or I was kind of curious, like, in asking you, why did you choose the bass as your instrument of choice? Is that just first time were looking to join a band? That's what they needed, or?
So, Peter, Paul, and I all took guitar lessons from the same teacher in Syracuse, New York. That's how we know each other.
Oh, cool.
Peter and Paul are his prize students. That's why they play guitar. I am the not prize student, or I'm the booby prize student, as I sometimes joke, and that's why I play bass.
The curious thing I wanted to ask, because I'm a guy that I listen to music. I can't play musical note myself, so I have a great respect for what a guy like you can do. Again, I can't play a lick of music, so I seen, like, if you look at bass players too, like like Nicky Sixx or Jason Newsted from Metallica. A lot of those guys, they play the bass kind of like a guitar, and I was kind of curious. It's often been said, like, if you can play the bass guitar, you can play the regular guitar. What are your feelings on that?
I think if you're a guitarist, you can easily
pick up the bass,
become a decent bass player.
Yeah.
But if you want to be a master bassist, if you want to be an elite bassist, it's just as hard to become an elite bassist as it is to become an elite guitarist.
Yeah. I mean, when we think of bass players, there's only probably really a few that really stand out. I mean, I mentioned Nicky Sixx, Jason Newsted, Gene Simmons maybe from Kiss, Billy Sheehan is one that automatically comes to mind, Rudy Sarzo. But I was curious, who, as far as bass players, who are the guys that influenced you?
Well, I mean, obviously Geddy Lee is a huge influence.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I'm starting pretty high up there. I as a guitarist who plays bass, I try to study everybody I can. When I realized I was playing bass in a band, I started listening to everybody. So I've tried to study JROCK, I've tried to study Victor Wooten, I've tried to study, you name it. I kind of went down that rabbit hole to try to learn as much as I could, and I am not anywhere near where I would like to be as a bassist.
Wow.
But I play in a band with two master guitarists.
And like you said, Greg, success is different things to different people. I'll tell you right off the back. Speaking to you, I would say you're living the dream. In fact, like you said, you're in a band. You got a new record out, so you've come back far, which is a lot farther than some people ever get. So again, you're living the dream. You gotta love that.
Yeah, I mean, we're having a lot of fun, and every day we hear people saying they really like the album, and that's great, and that makes it even more worth it. So
getting back to, you mentioned Geddy Lee and Rush. Getting back to Rush for a minute, I can't think of what the album title is, but I know a Rush fan. I just seen the other day their advertisement. They're getting ready to re-release one of their classic albums from like 40 years ago. So if you're a Rush fan, that's something you're gonna want to check out.
Yeah. I mean, I have everything they've done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do see they're always repackaging and all that sort of stuff. So I'm sure we'll end up checking it out.
And Geddy Lee is an interesting cat in that great frontman, but like you said, great bass player. But I imagine you can attest to this, to be able to not only play the bass guitar and be the frontman in a band, but to be a lead singer as well. That's got to take a certain amount of talent.
Well, I mean, yeah, and in his case, he was playing
keyboards as well.
Keyboards,
Everything.
bass, and singing at the same time.
Yeah.
So I have enough trouble playing the bass and occasionally singing.
Yeah.
So my hat's off to him.
Now I imagine. Now, do you sing lead or do you do background? I was curious.
So Peter sings the lead on the songs, other than in a couple of cases where Paul and I sing.
Okay.
And on some of the new material that may change, but for what you're hearing now, Peter is the lead singer.
Okay, and now you take a band like I don't know how big of a Van Halen fan you are, but you take a band like Van Halen, all those classic albums, David Lee Roth. I mean, Michael Anthony and his background vocal sound, that was such a huge part of that band. So how important are those background vocals? When you guys are up there on stage.
When we're on stage, how important are they?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, I imagine since you're not like one of the main lead singers, you do a lot of backup vocals. What's that experience like for you, having to get up there and kind of be part of that?
I mean, the nice thing is if I'm singing the background vocals, and I'm having a bad night, I can just back off and no one's going to notice. If I was singing the lead vocals and I was having a bad night, everybody would notice. So there's a lot of room there for me, and sorry, hold on. It gives me the freedom to sort of clown around more, to have more fun on stage. Because I'm not tied to the microphone. I do feel like I'm tied to my effects board way too much, but it does give me that freedom, and then I do get to sing at times, so that makes it fun. And when you're up on stage, Greg, how much do you like to move around on stage? Like, do you guys ever run into each other? Or do you kind of stay in one place? No. Well, I'm trying to think of a funny way to answer this. We don't run into each other. I would be the one running into them. Paul is stuck with a keyboard and a guitar and switching on and off, so he doesn't move much. So I'm the one who's goofing around the most on stage.
Oh, that's cool. And now I got to ask before we wrap this up. I always love to hear stories how the band came up with the name. I mean, in your case, Epic Tantrum. I listened to the album, and that is so fitting because it's kind of you put that album, there's a little bit of everything on there, it's like a crazy rock and roll tantrum. But how did you guys come to the name? It's just so fitting for you, I think.
So I kept making up different stories of how we came up with the name, and I ran out of fake stories. So the real story is we were throwing around a lot of names, and our drummer, who goes by the name Z, kept wanting to have the name Messiah. Everything was Messiah in the name, and at one point, Epic Messiah and somehow I think Tantrum Messiah. It was like this weird combination, and finally we went, well, Epic Tantrum. We combined those two things, and everybody went, oh, that's kind of a cool name. And
now, when you guys came up with the name, because I kind of dig the name also, Epic Messiah, did you get a lot of like lashback from that, from people saying, oh no, it'll never work, or people never go for it?
We never, it was never called Epic Messiah. That was just he kept saying, the drummer just kept wanting to use the name Messiah.
Oh, wow.
And so that's that. So, jokingly, I tell people if there's a song on the next album with Messiah in it, that's him insisting on the use of that word. But
wow.
No, and then when I joined the band, when we were discussing putting out the album, there was we said, do we want to keep it called Epic Tantrum? And I joked that was the best thing about the band. That'd be a good description maybe when you guys get together. But I'll tell you, in just one word, that would be a good description of your guys' music or album. It is just epic. I mean, it's that huge. It's that huge. It's that good. So in a word, I really do strongly urge people to go out and buy the album. If you get a chance to ever go out and support the band live, do so. But is there anything else you'd like to say, Greg, before you wrap this up? I've really enjoyed talking to you. I just would like to say before doing so, anytime you have anything to promote, or you got a new video or anything out you guys want to talk about, feel free to let Chip know, or you just reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to do this again. So thanks for taking time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it. Oh, thank you. We appreciate it, and we love it most when we do an interview and the person has actually listened to the music. So I appreciate that you took the time to listen.
I try to at least listen to a few, because Otherwise, you know, you come off sounding like, hey, I have no idea what I'm talking about, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
No, the only other thing is you know, asking people to, you know, check us out, like us on, you know, epictantrum.com or on Facebook or on Spotify or any of the social media. And